elections. Well, let's talk about what to expect tonight, and to do so, we're pleased to be joined from Newsmax New York by the former governor of New York and one who ran for the Republican nomination this year, George Pataki. Governor, it's always good to have you here on Newsmax TV. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with us. Before you sat in the chair, we heard from Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana, a rock-ribbed Republican, someone who served with distinction in the House of Representatives with me and followed you as a chief executive of a state as the governor of Indiana. Earlier this year, you told us you had real concerns about Mr. Trump heading the ticket. My question for you tonight, George, do those concerns remain with you?
JD, first, thanks for having me on. Good being on with you on this historic night. And yes, I still have those concerns. You know, I think Hillary Clinton is a horribly flawed candidate and person. I think a majority of Americans don't trust her and don't believe she's told us the truth. And yet, you mentioned the IBD poll, which shows Trump ahead. A lot of polls show Hillary ahead. If anybody else had been the nominee, if Mike Pence had been our presidential nominee, he would be winning, I believe, by double digits tonight. So yes, I still have concerns, but clearly in my mind, Hillary Clinton should not be president of the United States.
Well, taking that into account, George, and obviously you have the right to a secret ballot, but as a public figure, let me just ask you straight out, how did you cast your ballot today?
I voted against Hillary. And, you know, JD, you mentioned I was a Republican candidate earlier this year, and I signed a pledge saying I would support the Republican nominee. So I have. And so I voted for my party's candidate. It wasn't something that made me very exciting because, as I said, I think if we had run any really more capable candidate like a Mike Pence, we would be winning in a landslide. But I kept my word, voted against Hillary, supported the Republicans.
So Governor Pataki keeps the pledge. And George, I think a lot of people are heartened to hear that tonight because of the static that was presented. And if it gives you any ease, let me tell you personally, it was very difficult for me in 2012 to cast a ballot for Mitt Romney after he had come out to support John McCain when I was in the tough primary against Senator McCain. Sometimes these things happen, but we have to take a look and evaluate the candidates as they are. And, you know, I think there are a lot of conservatives who say, now, wait a minute. In 2008, we were with McCain. In 2012, we were with Mitt Romney. We have tried the moderate approach. It has not worked. Mr. Trump, perhaps with his populist approach, certainly performed quite well in the Republican primary. You dispute his performance for the general election, but you maintain the pledge. Let's just, it's a chance, I guess, now for 11th hour advice, because earlier we saw the video of Mr. Trump going in to vote this morning in New York City. If you had been able to offer Donald Trump some advice, George, what would that advice have been?
Well, first of all, to not insult and go after broad swaths of America, whether it's veterans and veterans' parents like Senator McCain, whether it's immigrants like Latinos. You know, the Republican Party, I believe our conservative principles work for everybody. They work for immigrants. They work for Latinos. They work for African Americans. But Donald Trump just turned off such a huge part of the electorate that if he wins, it's going to be because of the anger towards Washington, anger that I share. I think Washington is a corrupt system that has grown too big, and because they're voting against Hillary Clinton. I would have liked to see us have a candidate who gave us some positive reasons to vote for them. And sadly, I don't think Donald Trump has done that very well.
Well, I suppose the positive nature is in the eye of the beholder, or perhaps the voter. There's something interesting going on tonight, George. There are unscientific exit polls that have been developed by Slate's Votecaster, and very early on in the evening, based again on these non-scientific polls. As we see the article from Newsmax.com, Votecaster shows Hillary Clinton with a turnout lead in all 7 battleground states. Those would be Iowa, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and New Hampshire, those particular states, but it is very early yet. So to put the kibosh on this, and I'm not entirely sure of the methodology of our friends at Votecaster, who are quite candid, it's not scientific. They're basing it on some polling and some responses they've gotten today. You went through an interesting experience running for governor back when I believe my name first appeared on the ballot for the House of Representatives, that big Republican year of 1994. Right. And we remember, not to dig up bones, but there were some established Republicans in New York State who did not endorse your gubernatorial campaign. With that as a guide, if Mr. Trump wins tonight, do you believe he will be able to reconcile Republicans, some who, unlike you, remained never Trumpers?
Well, I think the answer is yes, but it depends on him. You know, it's not about simply winning the election. It's what you do if you win the election. And JD, let me just back up a little bit here. I think Hillary Clinton is the most flawed Democratic candidate of my lifetime. An overwhelming majority of Americans don't trust her, don't believe her, and believe she broke the law. And yet we are in a very close race at best, and she may well win. And that's not because of her. That's because Donald Trump has failed to inspire the American people, has gone out of his way to alienate people who could have voted Republican but aren't. And JD, you mentioned my 94 race. 94, people in New York State, an overwhelmingly Democratic state, had a sense that Albany was out of control and didn't serve their interests. Now, people feel a sense that Washington is out of control and doesn't serve their interests. There was a huge outpouring of people who came out to vote for me. They didn't know me, but they believed I had a chance to change my state. There is an outpouring of people voting against Washington, but at the same time, Donald Trump's failure to reach out to non-traditional Republican voters, I think, has made this close race. So if he wins, he will be the president. I would hope that he would reach out to those Republicans who couldn't support him. But I also hope that he'd reach out to Democrats. We're all Americans. When the election's over, you should try your best to put aside partisanship and govern in the interest of the American people.
And of course, before you get there, you got to win tonight, George. It is worth noting that there has been some reconciliation on the stump in Wisconsin with Governor Mike Pence. House Speaker Paul Ryan urged those opposed to Trump within the Republican Party to come back home. Let's look and listen.
I voted for Donald Trump and Mike Pence. I voted for Ron Johnson. I voted for every Republican I saw on the ballots. Do you know why I did that? Because Republicans, it is time to come home and go out and vote.
So there is Speaker Ryan rallying Republicans in Wisconsin. Yeah. There may be some reconciliation tonight. Final 20 seconds to you, George.
I'm a big fan of Paul Ryan. That's another example of someone that needlessly Donald Trump went after when he should have been focusing on positive ideas for America. Whoever wins, and I hope it's not Hillary, they should work to bring Americans together, have a positive vision for our future, try to put aside partisan politics, drain the swamp in Washington, and give power back to the American people.
Governor George Pataki, former governor of New York, a Trump supporter today. George, we thank you for your time, and our coverage of America Votes continues after this.